Okay, I see the pump.
So you saw it, Doc?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna share the link. We are live, but I will share the link in the private chat there if y'all want to share. Okay, Janet, take it away.
Welcome to Sofa. Y'all know how we do.
Welcome to Sofa. I am so sorry, y'all. My apologies. I just have to give them that 5 minutes of that. Yeah, that. Yeah. Okay. Welcome to another edition of Soulful, where today we are talking about race and the COVID-19 vaccine. My name is Janet.
I'm Toya.
I am Latoya.
And our awesome esteemed guest, if you introduce yourself by saying your name.
David Hodge.
All right. So, ladies, what we working on this week?
Well, first of all, I want to say shout out to Jazz. She's always viewing. Toya Bass. So glad to see you guys. Thanks for being here. So, I guess I'll go first. I've been working on some graphics in preparation for a couple of live shows I'm helping with this week.
Nice. I've been working on some promotions I got going on. Started a new mentorship program called the Business Bestie. So I've been putting that promotion out there. Also, too, working on graphics and stuff like that. And just doing a lot of networking.
Nice.
And I'm currently in the same process of getting ready for December month of social media. Secondly, completed a project for my church with a brochure and some flyers for Georgia Give Day that's coming up December 1st. And in addition, I'm preparing for a new marketing campaign that I'm about to put out. So just working the best way we can to maintain in our current environment and situation. And Dr. Hodge, what are you working on?
I'm working on catching up. I had an eye injury 5 weeks ago, and it has given me a whole lot of frustration trying to heal. And so I fell behind. Last week was very busy. Last week I presented at what's called a public health ethics intensive at Tuskegee University. And Saturday before that, I presented at Harvard University a panel discussion on a lot of what we'll be talking about today. So I'm just trying to catch up, just researching and writing.
I think you need a little bit of a rest.
That is true. But Toya asked, so I said yes. So I can't rest yet.
Well, let's jump right into this conversation. Let me tell the people a little bit about you. As I said, we're welcoming the esteemed Dr. David Augustin Hodge, which we found out he's from Rock City, the Virgin Islands, but that's a personal conversation. And he currently serves as the Associate Director of Education for the National Center for Bioethics and Research and Healthcare at Tuskegee University. In addition to his academic and administrative duties, Dr. Hodge is a researcher, author, and editor. This includes serving as the Senior Associate Editor for the Central Journal of Healthcare, Sciences, and Humanities. For nearly 2 decades prior, he provided leadership to the Religion and Philosophy Department at Florida Memorial University in Miami. Man, you done travel. You done get all over the place. Okay, that's another. During a portion of his time, he also taught moral theory and bioethic courses at Nova Southern University in Fort Lauderdale. Dr. Hodge is presently in the research and writing stage with 2 books, Paragrammic Bioethics and Intersectional Public Health Ethics, Bioethics, and African Americans, Springer Press, and Jesus, Trust, and Virtue Ethics. Welcome, Dr. Hodge.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. So tell us a little bit about even some of the research that you just recently finished doing in correlation with COVID and the vaccine.
You know, Harvard, some of our colleagues at Harvard University contacted us recently and asked us if we will and join with them to unpack the low number of Blacks in clinical trials because of an article we published on African Americans in clinical trials. That article has gone around the world a few times, and in there we try to demonstrate why there's less than 5% participation in clinical trials. There's good reasons for it, of which I will discuss as we go through, especially if you have particular questions, but there's good reasons for the low number of participation in clinical trials. And a major part is the major distrust that African Americans have for medical research, even clinicians and so on. So there's justification for the distrust, and that justification kind of come at a time where we really don't have time for the justification, although the justification is valid. It's valid justification. The veracity of any argument that demonstrates that Blacks have been used, misused, and abused in America, in the American public health system, cannot be challenged. The documents are there, the history is there, and history being what it is, 2020, you can't shift it. It's a fact. And I published an article some time back called, and you can find it on the net, it's called The Ethics of Ambiguity and the Ethics of Belief, in which I talked about facts are never ambiguous. Facts are always what they are. Now, how we interpret the facts can lead to ambiguity, can lead to a kind of crisis of belief. So it's upon us to question interpretations, not necessarily question facts, but to question interpretations of facts. One of the things I do is I teach a Bible study online on Facebook. I started teaching it for my family, and my son is still in South Florida. When Toya knew him, he was a little dude. He's younger than her little brother. He's 28 now. He's a teacher in Homestead. But I try to teach Bible study to my family, to my kids. And the first day we signed on, we had 350 people on there. Yeah, little David. He's not little anymore. He's about 6'1". But we had 350 people on there. And I said, wow, this is a ministry. So anyway, I started teaching in Genesis. I'm still in Genesis. But I started in Genesis chapter 1, which took about 4 weeks to get out of Genesis chapter 1. So I'm teaching it the way I would teach it at a university. I'm teaching it to kind of show that the strengths and the weaknesses of interpretations. The reason I say this is because some of the problems that we have, even the atheists, I don't object to a whole lot of atheistic beliefs, but some of the problems we have is based upon interpretation. Things are there. God is who God is, but how do you interpret God? That is the question. So the problem has always been not in whether or not God is God, but the question has always been, how do we interpret God? And so, for example, I don't believe there's a flood that covered the entire planet, and I have good reasons and justification for that belief. But to say that God participated in a flood that killed all of these babies, I don't see that as a loving God. But that is the perception based upon those who were there and how they interpreted God. So the same thing is true in terms of facts. People interpret facts in certain kind of ways. And that now leaves us justifiable, that is African Americans justifiable in the rejection of medical research. Now, that rejection, like I said, comes at a time in which we need to be a part of medical research, because this COVID-19 is a serious thing. It's killing hundreds of thousands of people at this level, and it has infected millions of people just in this country alone. Beyond 1 million people in this country alone. So So therefore, whether or not we should be involved in the clinical trials becomes an extremely important conversation. Now, what are some of the reasons why there is mistrust? The number one reason that people point to is the United States Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee. In 1932, between 1932 and 1972, the government was involved in unethical research on African American males in Macon County, Alabama, in which the name of this study was untreated syphilis in the Negro male. So the whole intent was not to treat these men. There was a previous study of white men in Oslo, Norway, in which they treated or attempted to treat those men. But the idea in Tuskegee, or the idea in Macon County, was to watch them refuse to treat them, set up a surveillance system in which if they tried to get away and have somebody else to treat them, in which they will be shut down, and to watch the way in which the disease will progress through these men. And after the disease killed them, or however they would die beyond that, then do an autopsy on them to see if white insides, internal organs, are devastated in a similar way to black internal organs. So by 1940, between 1944 46, when they discovered the cure for syphilis, they did not treat the men. Now, some argue that the syphilis, the penicillin would not have helped anyway, but there were men who became syphilitic from the control group who came into the syphilitic group. They could have treated them, but they refused to treat them. And this went on until 1972, when it was discovered and it became a big issue. So that's the reason people typically point to. So in our question and answer period, I could say more about that. But that is not the totality of reasons. The history of medical experimentation on Black people in America goes on for a whole lot more years. For example, between 1845 and 1850, Dr. J. Marion Sims in Montgomery, Alabama, he did surgical techniques trying to repair what is called the vesico-vaginal fistula, or the recto-vaginal fistula, on Black women, slave women, namely Betsy, Lucy, and Anarcha, and some others. So he practiced on Black women without the use of anesthesia. Now, some would argue, well, anesthesia was not widely available at the time, and in fact, part of that is true. But even when it became available, Dr. Sims chose not to use it and said that these women, the pain that these women were feeling was not that bad. Well, if that's the case, then why are these women being held down on the operating table? As a matter of fact, the 30 male white doctors who were there, they walked away. They couldn't take it. So the pain that these women were in, because they laid them down not laid them down, but they had them on their knees, on their arms, and I hate to use this kind of metaphorical, but doggy style position. So they had them in that position, and they would enter the woman's vagina from behind. That is Dr. Sims, and go in and try to repair the fistula. And he tried several times, and it didn't work. It took a long time before it worked. And nevertheless, after he was able to heal these women of this incontinence that they have, I think I'm going to explain what that is. That during childbirth, if it's traumatic, or during rape, if it's traumatic, there's it's possible for there to, like a child's head, to rub on the uterus and rub such a way that a tear would occur, that I continue to rub, and a tear would occur in the bladder, which means that bladder would leak urine into uterus and down to the vagina, which led to an incontinence. And this literal urination on herself was created a public ostracism, where, who wants to be around a woman who is constantly urinating on herself. There's like nonstop. So it was a very painful, if not psychologically, if not physically painful, psychologically painful way to live. The rectovaginal fistula is when the similar thing happens with the rectum. So therefore, feces is coming through the vagina. So there was a terrible, it was a terrible condition that Black women and white women faced. But notice he did not use white women to practice. He used Black slave women. And then after he perfected his system, then he went to New York and established the New York City Hospital for Women, and he worked on primarily white women. Then he went over to Europe and he did work there, and he became very famous and very wealthy. He was the best known of the doctors. As a matter of fact, today he's called as the father of gynecology. And the specula, that is the instrument that is used on women when they're having various kinds of intrusive vaginal what do you call it? When doctors treat you. When they have that the specula is the sim specula that when women are having what do you call that thing that you women have on a regular basis? Just slipped my mind. Huh?
Pap smear.
There you go. Yeah. So that instrument, it was perfected by Sims. So that's another level of distress. And by the way, just for the fun of it, Anacha was from Macon County. So she was only like 18 years old at the time. So when she went back, she had a son. She had at least one son. So when she went back to Macon County, there's good reason to believe that her son, or at least her grandson, was involved in the syphilis study. So here's one family who were involved in the two most horrific medical experimentation on Black people in America. You see, so
you got to be kidding me.
You've got to be kidding. There's another little part to that is, to this day, when this is 2020, and do you not know that still today in 2020, well-trained medical doctors still give Black women less pain medication than their white counterparts because, and this is statistically true, because they believe that Black women can tolerate pain better. Now, how is this helpful? Now there's other medical issues that I could talk about, and more recently, the female fibroid tumors. 33%, there's a great chance that one of the three of you have fibroid tumors, right? Because 33% of Black women have fibroid tumors. Even in my own family, about 3 of my sisters, and I have 4 sisters, have had fibroid tumors. My mother has had fibroid tumors. So historically, the way you deal with fibroid tumors is, one way early on is sometimes they will remove the uterus, or they remove the fallopian tube, or the any way that is simplest to maintain the fertility of the woman. For white women, for Black women, hysterectomy. So that's a form of sterilization. So most Black women, or I should say many Black women, underwent sterilization would remove the entire uterus package that would create for a hysterectomy, and they didn't do the same for white women. Well, white women, they had less invasive procedures, and this is well documented. So given this, why should Black people trust the clinical trials? Why should they trust the medical research community, given their history with what they've been doing? Now, so a few weeks ago, the president of Xavier University in New Orleans and Dillard University in New Orleans, they sent out a notice that their students should participate in clinical trials. These are HBCUs, these are Black schools. But one parent got it, and she said, "We will not allow our children to be guinea pigs." Interestingly enough, Mr. Herman Shaw, who was one of the men in the syphilis study, who was the spokesman in 1997, April 1997, when President Bill Clinton gave the apology to the men and their families for the syphilis study. He was the one who spoke and introduced President Clinton. He used the exact words. He said, "We were guinea pigs, guinea hogs. This is how we were used." So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the atrocities that has been placed upon Black people has been such that under what conditions should Black people be interested in participating in clinical trials? Now, shortly, a couple hours ago, I was interviewed by Birmingham News, and the question was put to me, well, but are you saying that Blacks should not participate in clinical trials for COVID? I said, no, I'm not saying that. I said a week ago I was saying that. But when we look at about a week ago, when Pfizer came out with 90% effectiveness in clinical trials, and Moderna came out a couple of days ago with 94.5% effectiveness in clinical trials, it'll be irresponsible for me as a bioethicist, as a public health ethicist, as a neuroethicist, to tell Black folk not to participate in clinical trials because the imbalance, the weight is too much. However, and I'm not even saying not to participate in clinical trials. I'm saying not to, for Black people to avoid taking the vaccine, because we are dying at twice the rate than are white people. So let me say something about that. Back in March, when we discovered that Albany, Georgia, had a higher prevalence for COVID-19 and COVID-19 death than other places, a smaller community like Albany, Georgia. Mr. Anderson Cooper of Anderson Cooper 360 on CNN, he said, "What is happening in Albany, Georgia is criminal." I disagree with him in principle, because I think he's right. But in principle, there needs to be a clear understanding of what he's actually trying to say. I think this is what he's actually trying to say. It's not so much that coronavirus or COVID-19 is criminal. I mean, how is a virus criminal, right? A virus doesn't have a moral, rational, even emotive way of thinking. A virus doesn't pick and choose morally. Oh, by the way, there's just a little sidebar. Back to the flood thing. If God killed all the animals except those in the ark, why would God kill animals who have no moral content? Animals don't do things morally, so how are they bad, right? How do you kill fish? How do you drown fish? But that's a sidebar. That's just have a little fun. Okay, so back to Albany. The virus is not criminal. What is criminal is that for years, and I do mean for years, Black excess deaths. There is about 7 excess death categories, including hypertension, diabetes, obesity, HIV, some certain mental health conditions, Alzheimer's is a major one. Blacks have led in cardiovascular. Blacks have led in excess deaths. Excess deaths are the deaths that are over the amount of deaths of the white equivalent. So given the amount of whites and the amount of Blacks, there should be no more than 13 to 14% Black deaths for cardiovascular disease, for hypertension, for diabetes. But the fact that Black deaths are like 50 to 80% in those numbers, that shows a public health problem, wherein it's not so much that these diseases are targeting Black people or even in their diet targeting Black people, but if you live in a food diet like Tuskegee, for example, where the only food place is Piggly Wiggly, that doesn't necessarily have the best fruit and vegetables and so on. If you live in a food desert, and if you live in a mental health desert or a medical desert where you do not have access to healthcare and so on, for example, see if with the vaccine, if the vaccine is going to be given by CVS or Walgreens, right? If you go into some Black communities in Miami, it's hard to find a CVS or Walgreens or Walmart. They're doing better, yes, they are, but you can't find a Publix in Liberty City. You can't find. You'll find some little like Save-A-Lot or something of that sort, but you're not going to find the best. So therefore, Blacks live in a desert. Now, and then in terms of healthcare, blacks are at the bottom of the healthcare ladder. So what is criminal is that yes, that's right. You can find the liquor stores. You just open up another category, Sister Latoya. Okay, now what is criminal is that because of these historical issues that have been allowed to linger, what you do find in the Black community is a higher prevalence of these what's called social determinants of health and these negative problems that's causing death. So you have these higher prevalences of these, and that means that Black people are already in danger. Black and people of Hispanics too, so people of color. If that is the case, then they're vulnerable. And if they're vulnerable, then they're more susceptible to epidemics and pandemics like HIV and whatever else because they're vulnerable. So when any pandemic comes, they're prepared to receive the worst because they're vulnerable. Let me give you an analogy that would be helpful here. All of Louisiana knew that the ninth and 10th ward of New Orleans, that the levees were weak. They knew it. But they were also in the poorer areas. So therefore, when Katrina came, Katrina is not a moral thing. Katrina is a hurricane. Just like a virus, it doesn't have a moral intent. It's coming at you, whether you're rich or whether you're poor. So when Katrina came through, and all it needed was enough wind and rain, and that exposed the vulnerability and susceptibility of those who lived in that vicinity. Therefore, they died, and they were left behind. And I might like to cuss, some jackasses, pastors and preachers actually came out and said that God, yes, too late, but that's what they are, that God sent Katrina because of the voodoo or the sinful nature of Blacks in New Orleans. That is some stupid foolishness. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, how the heck the wealthy who ran and who profited, yes, from the liquor stores, ABC, those who profited from the whatever pathological systems they had there, they caught a plane and they were out of there. The only people left behind were the poor and the broke. So therefore, God is attacking them because they're poor and broke. Same thing now. There's some stupid preachers who are saying things like God sent the coronavirus because of the wickedness of America. Well, if God wanted to deal with the wickedness of America, God would have started in the White House. God would have started in where a wickedness spread. Right now, the president is playing golf rather than dealing with the amount of people who are dying. So I'm going to stop there and open it up for any questions you may have, and I will do my best to respond.
Well, I'll tell you this. It hurts my heart to know that we were looked at as such disposable goods. You know what I mean? Like, for them to want to use us in experiments. And you're right, because I am one of those people that I do not trust everything clinically they say, because I'm not trying to be your experiment. And I don't think they're always very truthful with us as far as what they're trying to do. I have noticed that they haven't cured anything for a very long time, and I don't think they want to because there's no money in curing you. There's a lot of money in keeping you alive while you suffer through it. We can make you comfortable with it, but we're not curing it. And that stuff like that makes me very upset. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There, when I first started Tuskegee in 2017, my my brother was diagnosed with colon cancer sometime before, and he died on June 7th, and I started Tuskegee on October 3rd. So he's 18. He was 18 months my senior, so he's like my near twin brother. So my whole family, my siblings, we flew out to California where he lived, and that's interesting because that was like the first time my mother. There's 12 of us. I'm number 11 or 12, and that was he was number 10. So that was the first time. No, sorry, he was. There's a sister between us, but so he's number 9. So that was the first time in like 30, 40 years, 30 something years that we had that many siblings together at the same time. And my brother, who was in England, he called in on FaceTime, so he was there with us. And interestingly enough, ironically, he died on I think June 17th of this year of throat cancer. Nevertheless, as a matter of fact, my hair is shaved bald right now because my sister has cancer and her hair is gone. So I shave my head in support of my sister so that she'll feel a companionship. She bald, I'm bald. We look alike.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
So that's my sister. I love my sister. Now, when we went to when we were in California, I took him to the doctor, and the doctor said they were trying to get him into a clinical trials because he kind of fit what they were trying to do because he was a black man with a unique kind of colon cancer, so he was perfect for that fit. For whatever reason, he didn't get in, but the doctor said that in phase 2, he can get in, which was going to start in 30 days. So our prayer was that he would hold on 30 more days. He died like in 15 more days. So I'm sitting in the room with the doctor and his oncologist, and I feel those oncologists, God bless them, they don't know how to tell you that, listen, this is an extreme long shot. The likelihood is not going to work. He's going to die. They can't tell you that because they don't want to destroy your total hope. So I sit in the room and I'm thinking about this clinical trial thing. Now, a few months later, I went to work at Tuskegee University, and the first issue I took up was xenotransplantation. And you could find that article online, just type xenotransplantation and my name Hodge, and it should pop up. But I was intrigued with xenotransplantation. Xeno means strain, transplant. That is to take, or foreign, that is to take the kidney of a pig or some other alien animal and put it into a human. So there's some ethical issues there. The first one being, what if the person is a Muslim? They're Seventh-day Adventists. They may not want a pig kidney inside of them. That's the first one. Number 2, did you ask that pig for his kidney? You're raising this pig just to take his kidney. So there's a kind of animal rights issue. Okay, now, so after I wrote that article, because at that point, UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, had just received I can't remember, this is an article, $20-something million because they're the lead transplant situation. So after they read my article, they invited me up to along with my director to UAB to have a conversation about clinical trials. How can you get people involved in clinical trials? And we turned them down. We turned them down for a year. The reason we turned them down is, and they wanted to come to us. The reason we turned them down is Tuskegee University is the epicenter of bioethics for Black people in America. Right? People want this. If people could say, they could say, we went by Tuskegee and we decided to do this. Now, that would not be a lie. Neither of those things would be a lie. But the implication is that in coming, we agree with what they wanted to do. So we say that you can't come here, but we will come to you. And if we see that you're trustworthy, then we will be willing to work with you. So we went to UAB and we sat down, we had a conversation. And they said, well, we need to know how to get Blacks involved in clinical trials. Well, there's an overwhelming majority, watch the numbers, there's about 135,000 people right now who need a transplant. But you only have 30,000 organs available each year. That means you have 100,000 people who are going to die each year who need a transplant. So the pig kidney will benefit Black people. But one of the problems, a pig, the life expectancy of a pig is 5 to 12 years. So that pig, that kidney is not going to last more than that. So then you have to replace the kidney. And so you can see this is very expensive and lucrative because it's going to be the billions of dollars, right? So I said, my argument was, what does the informed consent say? The informed consent is a document that you have to sign that says that this is what we're saying that we're going to do to you, with you, to inform you of everything that's happening. Because the men in the syphilis study didn't have an informed consent. The women back in with Dr. Sims didn't have an informed consent. So this is how we should proceed. That's what informed consent is supposed to do. So I said, I think we have some issues here. Because here's the ethical issue. When I was with my brother, and they said they want to put him in clinical trials, and he's near dead, I don't care. I don't care what they asked me to sign, I was signing. Mm-hmm. I don't care, because if he's near death, it's immoral to wait until someone is about to die and then tell them, well, do you want to participate in clinical trial? Hell yes, whatever. Whatever you want me to do, I will do, right? So if clinical trials is going to work, the way that it has to be done is that you don't wait till later. You got to do it now. You got to start building trust with the community that you want to serve. And how do you do it? Trust is not a moral virtue. Trust is a biological or instinctive virtue. For example, you trust the air that you breathe. You're doing it right now, right? You trust the air. You don't even question it. Most times you trust the food that you eat. Even if it's a little chitlins, you trust the food that you eat. Depends on who cooked it, right? Who cleaned it. You trust the floor to catch you when you get out of bed in the morning. You assume that floor is there. You don't raise questions about that. So trust is a very natural, instinctive thing to do. You trust that remember the way to get home this evening. You're not sitting down there trying to fancy, unless you have some mental health problem. You're not sitting there trying to figure out how am I going to get home this evening. You pretty much trust your memory to work to get you home. So trust is not a moral issue. However, trustworthiness is a moral issue. It's a moral virtue, because trustworthiness says that I am going to take the time to create a sense of character and integrity and trustworthiness such that you will be willing to trust me. The person who is your mate, your husband, your wife, whomever, you trust that person because that person in your dating process proved himself or herself to be trustworthy. But the moment that person obliterates your trust, you never get 100% again. Now, you might get close, but you won't get 100%. If you have a 4.0 in college, 4.0 every semester in college, and you get your last semester and you get an A-, so you get a 3.95 or something. You will never be 4.0 again. In terms of your total curriculum, you get to be a 3.9999999. So trust then has to be in degrees. I see Toya has her hand up.
Yes, Dr. Hodge, I feel like I'm back in school, so I'm raising my hand. Doc, okay. So what you're doing here for me is solidifying that I should not trust these folks. You gave me a great history lesson. And so why in the world, how in the world am I supposed to be a part of a trial or any type of research? Like, I bet I don't.
No.
Well, let me give you 3 reasons.
Okay.
Let me give you 3 things that you need to ponder. Number 1, you have to have a cost benefit analysis that demonstrates the risk. Now, if you're a woman and you have children, right? You're a woman, you have children, and you like Angelina Jolie. She had a mastectomy. My thing is messing up here. She had a mastectomy because she believed that she has cancer in her DNA, breast cancer in her DNA. So she had a mastectomy. She said, I'd rather be without breasts than take a chance. Now, some people say, are you crazy? I'm not cutting my breasts off. I came with these breasts. I'm going to go ahead and keep them, right? Cost benefit analysis. You have to do a risk assessment. So if you see that, wait a minute now, I'm in a vulnerable situation. It might be in your best interest when you weigh your interest versus the possibilities of losing your life, and you have children. How do you fall on this one? So some people say, well, I'm not going to take the vaccine. Hold on. You looking at 250, 260,000 people dead. You looking at 140 people infected a day. You willing to take that chance? So it's really, really nerve-wracking. I'm not talking about the clinical trials at this point because the clinical trials are almost done, but I'm talking about the vaccine itself. You have to think, wait a minute, at what point do I surrender? At what point do I surrender my autonomy for my best interest because it can come back and bless me? Now, in the paper that
my best interest.
That part.
Wait. Your best interest is your life.
But
That's
okay,
that's what you're wearing.
My question to you is, well, I got several questions, and we don't have all time for all the questions I have. But the first question is, how I know this vaccine not gonna hurt me 5-10 years from now? That is.
Yes.
Like from the beginning, listen. Answer that question to you first.
For real. That's for real.
That's the point. See, that's a very good question. And here's my response. That's what I'm talking about. Is very individual, because you got to look and see. Wait a minute. Do I suffer now or potentially suffer later? Because COVID now is a very mysterious thing. One of my colleagues got COVID a couple weeks ago. He has 0 symptoms. 0. I have a couple of classmates who are dead. This is some weird stuff. So, like, do I take a chance? And if I catch COVID and I get the worst of it, my entire household falls. It collapses. Because I do not have good life insurance because I'm diabetic. You see, my whole house will collapse. So now, I don't know in 6 months if the vaccine is going to affect me. But the likelihood is that I would catch COVID, and I'm obese. I mean, you can't tell because it looks like I'm just muscular, but I'm a little fluffy. I wasn't fluffy when Toya knew me, but I got a little fluffy because of the diabetes and the insulin. So that's the weight, my dear sister. That's, you see what I'm saying? It is something that we have to be prayerful and thoughtful about. And one of the things we argue for in that article that you read is that whomever, be it Pfizer or whomever, and the federal government, whatever ill effects it causes, if it causes, that they will be responsible for the treatment. They will treat me for whatever that comes after. And the scary thing is, that's the best option over against not doing anything, and it caused me even worse, a worse scenario. So, and that's why, listen, I'm gonna say that I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. I just have that disposition. I'm very empathic. I'm very caring. I don't hate anybody. But I strongly dislike Donald Trump. I strongly dislike this dude. Why? Because he prioritized his self-interest, his finances, his family over the health of America. This thing could have been shut down a long time ago. If in the very beginning, when he knew, way back in February, when he knew, he held it until after January, then the January he knew, he held it for a month and a half. If he knew and shut down the country for 2 weeks so that everyone is quarantined, we wouldn't have these amount of deaths now. But now
that's the part that I'm talking about right there.
He wanted to be a save a hoe. Lord God, I'm cussing. No, hoe is not cussing. He wanted to be for his presidential election. But that's how come that should come back on him. But anyway, go back.
That's the part I'm talking about right there. Like you prioritizing money over
lives.
That's why you can't trust it. That's why you can't trust it.
Because one of the things, okay, so let me ask you this quick thing. We're running out of time here, but how you feel about autism? Because I feel this just in my 49 years of being on this world, autism didn't become prevalent into the last 10 years in my mind. That's when I started to hear a lot more about this word. But where did autism come from? I'm feeling that it's either something in the food that they've been giving women, some type of injection, or something related to where we have gotten it. And so those are the things that I think about. You tried something, you gave me something, because to me, we're test dummies every day with the food that we eat. They are putting all kinds of fertilizers and to keep things last longer. Man, some things that I see stay with their preservatives should never stay. They should have did long time ago. But because they're trying to keep things longer and so that you can have them without running back to the grocery store, we are consuming things in our bodies that don't allow us to digest on a daily basis. We're supposed to eat, go to the bathroom, and sleep. That's how we're supposed to do. And half of us don't even go to the bathroom one time a day.
That's wrong.
Not me, but I love when you get raw, my dear sister. I love when the full Jamaican come out. Okay, so let me say this about autism. In 1988, I went to Oral Roberts University to work on a master's degree in education, and I'll never forget. Autism was a paragraph in the book on the mental retardation, in the human development book, on the mental retardation. Now, autism is volumes of books, and it's not mental retardation. You're 100% correct. It is something else. Therefore I have two thoughts on autism. I'm a Christian evolutionist, a theological evolutionist, a philosophical evolutionist. So I believe that you don't throw away science because it doesn't fit into our theology. You look at your theology and you raise questions. Like the flood, when it says the whole earth was covered, well, back in those days, they thought the earth was flat. So in their minds, if we were in Houston when there was a flood a couple years ago, and we cut off all communication, we have no idea how big this flood is. We assume this is so bad in Houston that this thing might cover the entire planet. So we have no idea. So that's the world that they lived in. So that's how they interpreted it, right? So as you look at as an evolutionary state, we're taller than we used to be. You know, We if you go to a museum and you look at chairs were about 6 inches shorter than they are now because we're taller than we used to be. So we continue to evolve. When you look at autistic persons, they have tremendous capacity to zero in on one, sometimes two things. It could be music, it could be art, it could be whatever, mathematics. They're like geniuses in like one thing, and or two things, and now the lack that kind of emotion, social connectivity. So there's an argument that could be made that autism is just the next range of what's happening in the evolutionary prism. That is, that as some die off, though we in the future we're going to need people who have a capacity for deeper focus. So that's one thing that could be going on there. The third thing that could be going on, and my dear sister, I think that you on it. When you look at young girls having the menstrual cycle at 8, 9, and 10 years old. 8 years old? Come on. And when you look at what's fed to these animals, the chicken and stuff, so that they could grow much faster. These chickens, they grow faster than their legs are able to carry them. Their legs fold onto them, because they go heavy, because a chicken is born this week and is produced in 3 weeks. How the heck you get that accomplished? Same thing with a hog. So what's going on is they put all this product into these animals, and we then eat it, we consume it, and it goes into our DNA. Yes, I know we're out of time, but I have a lot more to say about that in terms of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Why is it that our young Black children are performing the way they do? All of this have that kind of conversation associated. So you've opened up a Pandora box of all kinds of things, but that's just the beginning of the answer.
Okay, Doc. So clearly you're gonna have to come back on.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have part 2 on this.
Yeah, part 2. So I want to know what y'all think, sisters. I feel like I'm not taking the vaccine. I don't want to be in nobody's clinical trials. This solidified what I already know and understand, and I'm going to focus on eating as best as I can, so I'm not so vulnerable. So so I can be the best Toya I can be. That's what I'm going to do. How do y'all feel?
Because I am of Caribbean descent. First, first because I am God's child. Second, because I'm of Caribbean descent. And third, because I already know my health challenges, I am choosing to abstain from taking the vaccine. I rather allow my health challenges to take care of me. And I use the Caribbean descent because if you notice, one of the first things that they started saying when COVID started was, are you taking your vitamins? Are you drinking your teas? Are you eating healthy? Well, even though we done now junk, we still already drink teas. We drink ginger. We use garlic. We use raw herbs. So we already are protecting our body against COVID in some fact because of the things. And we don't use our things one time. We cook with it. We drink with it. Sometimes we drink wrong things with it, but we use it in a variation of our day. I'd rather use those type of medics to take me through than to allow America to come kill me off.
I feel that until they start really curing some stuff, I can't trust it. I remember being a pharmacy technician, and back when they wasn't even telling people, this is when H1N1 had first popped on the scene, and they didn't tell everybody that the new flu vaccine was going to have H1N1 in it. And I was like, so why they not telling people about it? Like, what if I don't want that? And I just felt like, see, there they go using some, because everyone goes get the flu shot. So if you want to experiment on a mass basis, throw it in the flu shot. Everybody get the flu shot, and it's free. My mom used to say free stuff will kill you, and it's so true. It's so true. So I don't trust it. Let me see y'all cure some stuff first. Let me see all these dollars that we have been pushing towards research and development for all these long years. Let's see that come into curing some stuff.
Into fruition.
Yes, let's see that. Because the vaccine, first of all, think about the flu. The flu is a virus. Everyone knows viruses mutate. So yeah, you can get vaccination on this strand that's popular in your area.
Mm-hmm.
But what if that ain't the strand? What if you went and visited somebody and it was a whole nother strand that you came in contact with? Now you got the same flu that you said you went and got a vaccine for. But no, it's a different strand because viruses mutate. And then it's a whole new cycle all over again. Oh, God darn.
And the vaccines that come in our community are not always the same quality with vaccines in the other communities.
And we did, when I worked in the radio, when we used to do the flu shot. My first time ever taking the flu shot, it was the sickest flu I ever had. Every time they come back with the flu, no thank you. No thank you. So I have asthma because my daddy was a smoker. Long story, but anyway, so I have asthma. So even when it comes to me consuming those steroids and that albuterol and the aerosol that I eat, sometimes I have to pray over the medicine because I am. What is in this little clear liquid? What are y'all really giving me? Because I'm so concerned of what my body is already taking in. And then, when you have an asthma attack, you have continuous. They give you continuous treatments until your lungs start flowing again.
Last word, Doc. Last word.
My last word is when you all invite me back, let me know. And I'll make myself available to discuss other features. Ladies and gentlemen, we have so many problems. We have so many problems. It's not just one thing. And everything interconnects. There's an intersectionality that has to do with health, with the mass incarceration. That's another conversation in and of itself. That has to do with the racism and how deep it is in the DNA. Churches and how our churches are constructed. Our churches are constructed almost like plantations, and so the way we harm each other rather than love each other. So there's a whole lot of other interplays that goes on that we have to have conversations about. But I love what you all are doing. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the invitation. If you need me again, I'll make myself available. But these are just powerful conversations that need to take place. If you have any questions for me, just shoot them to me and I will do my best to respond. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Doc. Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, we really appreciated it. Be honest, I think we had some kind of I don't know, say, it's gonna be a doc that's gonna be so intellectual, and we appreciate you just really down to earth and be able to break down some of these concepts to us, in layman terms and so forth, where the audience could understand. And so Toya could understand. So thank you so much. You'll definitely have to come back when you have time. We know you're really busy. And again, congratulations for just all of the work, all of the wonderful things that you've done, for the society, for Black people and your work, all your accomplishments. I'm proud of you. You're my teammate, so I'm proud of my teammate.
Thank you.
Yes.
I truly feel that this was a very good conversation. If you are still tuning in and you have any questions, you still have questions about what we talked about right now, you can definitely put them in the comments. We can continue this conversation in the comments if you need to, but we will definitely have him back because this is a conversation that needs to be had, like you said. And I see his viewpoints. I know it's important, but like I said, they got to show and prove on some things. So We are very grateful for y'all to tuning in. Please join us next week, same place, same time. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss the next one.
That's right. Thank you guys. Bye.
All right. Take care. Take care.